Hey there. If you have any interest in CRPS, complex regional pain syndrome, you've got to join us for our discussion today. I'm going to set this up. We are going live with the fabulous Octavia. And thanks so much for joining us live to meet them, hear their story, and boom, you're on. Hi. So nice to see you. Last I saw you, you were on the way out the door of your last session.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Oh my God, that feels like so long ago now.
Doesn't
Yeah,
it? I like a lifetime ago, probably, because you are back in life doing things.
doing things. Yeah, keeping it going, keeping it moving.
Yeah. Well, I had the pleasure of meeting you in person that day, and also just kind of being along for the ride with your team on that journey, which I love doing. But mostly want to hear from you and the folks joining us too. Really want to hear your story. And I wonder if you could start with where you were before you started with us, and kind of what led you, and led us to have the privilege of being able to work with you.
Sure, sure. Awesome. So the reason why I came to Reactive is I had a hip surgery in 2022 for a torn labrum and hip impingement. That was in December. And I just wasn't recovering the way that I was told that I would be. I like had trouble walking, trouble sitting down, just kind of just like pretty like intense pain from doing most activities. And so, just spending a lot of time at home and like trying to figure out the next steps forward. Before that, I had CRPS in both my right and left feet. So I had that diagnosis from spraining my ankles multiple times, dancing, and then I learned I was hypermobile and just like a lot of like fear and trying to protect my body from hurting itself, which then kind of backfired and made my symptoms more intense. So I had made a lot of progress with my feet, but then this like hip situation came around and told me that this sort of thing wasn't done yet in my body. So I needed to figure some things out, and still figuring them out. But I came kind of to Reactive just because I really kind of felt like my life just wasn't working in the way that it was in that moment. I feel like I was, going to my job. I was trying to do things that fulfilled me, be that social or artistic, and I just couldn't figure out the balance with rehab, and felt like I was stuck. So I think it was really the right time to do an intensive program like that, and I'm really glad I did it.
Yeah. So you were at the time working, dancing, and kind of moving through the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and but recognizing that maybe you weren't getting as far as you want,
Yeah.
or things were backfiring, as you said.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah, yeah. And I think that resonates with a lot of people. And yeah, of course you had fear of doing things, because that is a very protective response for your brain and body.
Totally.
um, and I'm curious too how you ended up finding us, in particular our CRPS program.
Yeah. Yeah. So I found you on social media, I think. Just kind of like seeing y'all out there. I think I followed someone who's a PT, and I was just seeing all of the different kind of creative things that you all do for FND and other diagnoses. And I saw too that you all do CRPS, and then I saw Brittany Kim, if I'm
Yeah,
pronouncing her name correctly, also
yeah,
really specializing in CRPS physical therapy. And I was looking at a few different kind of intensive programs, and I think what really stood out for what you all do is really like the physical therapy forward approach, and that's really what helped me get out of like really bad symptoms with my feet. So I knew that that's really kind of like the key is both physical therapy, and like the mental aspects of the rehabilitation. And you all were like, yeah, like it takes some time, like it's not going to happen overnight. It's not just going to be like, boom, wow, like you're better. Like we did a fancy thing and then now you're free to run around and be completely pain free. It was like more like, okay, like here's how we kind of like work up to this bit by bit. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There's no miracles promised. And gosh, there's not a lot in the brain and body that's just like, Duke, like you
yeah,
can
that'd be nice. Yeah.
do it in an instant. And you mentioned, and somebody asked a question here in the comments about hypermobility too,
Mm,
that I think is really important for clinicians and other people to realize is that sometimes these things intertwine, right? It's not
right.
that one equals the other, but they could contribute to one another. And I'm curious how you found the approach because we see folks with hypermobility a lot with or without CRPS. So, how did you find the overlap of those things for yourself?
Yeah, so in terms of just like learning about like hypermobility diagnosis and like CRPS and stuff.
Yeah, how they
Yeah.
intersect for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was helpful for me to learn about because I grew up dancing and I majored in dance in college and I was finding like, oh my God, like I'm getting injured a lot. Like, oh, like I sprained my wrist, I sprained my feet, now I have a shoulder thing, I have like this and that. And what's going on? Like why does this seem to be happening to me and not some of my peers? And then realizing like, okay, like there's some like genetic like explanation for why there are some reasons why my body can be more susceptible to these things. So I was just figuring out, okay, how do I strengthen my body and work with that and not coddle it but just like
Mm-hmm.
take care of it. um
Yeah.
and so I think that that was helpful, just being like, okay, like this isn't all my fault. Like, or it's not my fault, like I'm really like trying, but like it like kind of helped shift some of like the blame and shame off of myself
Yeah.
and just kind of see things in a larger perspective.
Yeah, that's profound, Octavia, because I think there is a lot of self, like I'm doing something wrong, I'm dancing wrong, I'm doing like nobody else is getting injured. What's wrong with me?
Right.
And it really is like, okay, well, actually, it's a genetic thing, and other people don't have that genetic
Right.
disorder. You're not making bad choices or things like
Yeah.
that, leading to all of these injuries. I saw Michael joined us, by the way,
Oh
in the live
yeah.
watching,
uh,
and I
uh,
thought that would be a great time to just start talk about your team and kind of what you gain from the team approach, having PT, OT, psychology on your team.
yeah. So it was really, really awesome to have that holistic approach, like you were saying. Um, I think kind of like early on, I'm not sure which Michael's in the chat because I know that I saw two Michaels, one Mike, one Michael, uh, one in psych and one in PT. But in psych, Mike was like telling me, oh, if you have a flare here, that there's like a whole group of people who are like on your team and are here to figure out how can we learn from this, how can we move forward, what can we adjust. And that like really moved me and like really felt just like really good to hear that I was being taken seriously and that I was like really just kind of like being cared for in this holistic way, which I never really experienced before. I feel like maybe some other people with chronic illnesses or with CRPS can sometimes feel like, oh, like you go to a doctor and they don't necessarily know much about it, and there's kind of like, oh well, I don't know what to tell you. Like, do what you can, And so to have people who are really like, okay, yeah, like let's figure some of these things out. Let's like really go deep into it. Um, the OT was really wonderful because it helped me realize how doing things that give me joy and that I really care about are just as of an important process in my rehabilitation, like as like the PT, as the stuff in the gym, or in the studio, like how can I, go out and do things that I love to do, and make those goals really be a part of my process. So that was really huge to kind of put that into perspective. because I think I've spent a lot of time kind of just like really being afraid of like going and doing anything that like I
Huh.
want to do, but then I'm like, oh, I'm not supposed to do this because it's gonna ruin things or it's gonna stop my recovery.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. What a
that,
beautiful description of OT. It's like, I think we should write that all down because that was so lovely. And it's actually Michael, your PT, that joined
okay,
us
cool. Yeah.
live, which is awesome. And yeah, tell me a little bit about the PT journey at
Yeah.
Reactive.
Yeah, so it was really creative, really interesting working with Michael, Will, Brittany. I think some of my favorite things that we did were kind of like dance focused because you all knew that I came from a dance background. And I've really kind of discovered how important that is for me and my neuroplasticity. And I think that's really helped me get a lot of function back into my body, moving my hips in ways that I didn't know that I could move again now before the program. And there was one day I think where it was with Michael and I forget his name, but someone else working with us, and they had me like teach them a dance combination, and that was really fun and also really helpful for me too to be like, okay, yeah, like I can choreograph something and I can do more with my body than I thought, and I'm walking around the space unassisted as I'm like directing and like teaching them. So that was a really both like fun and like good for like the rehabilitation moment there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did all kinds
Yeah.
of things.
And good for Michael
Yeah.
to like up his dancing
Oh yeah.
skills, right? How did he
No,
do
he was
with that choreography, by the way?
sorry.
How did Michael do with that
He did pretty
choreography?
good. Oh yeah, no, he knew his plies, he knew his rond de jambes, his tendus. He was pulling out like ballet lingo. I was like, okay, I see you, I see you.
Okay, okay, that's a major shout out for Michael.
Absolutely.
We love working with dancers, Octavia. That is fantastic. So a lot of joy, a lot of doing those things that have probably been in your body for years,
Hmm.
right? Like kind of lying there in your brain, kind of motor memory type things.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm curious because you said you were kind of walking around the gym unassisted. How did you start at Reactive as far as, maybe how much you were using your body or how much assistance you needed? And where did you end? Like, how far did you come
Yeah.
over that time?
Yeah. So I started using either two crutches or a cane, and then with Michael, I kind of began to take some of my first steps unassisted since the surgery, and we started kind of like looking at a phone, and I would watch his steps in first person point of view as he walked, and then match those steps, and that was really useful. And then by the end, I was still working on my walking. I'm still working on my walking now. It's not like it's there's still goals to make in the process, but I was definitely able to walk back and forth a few times and at a faster pace.
Yeah, that's great. And I remember even as you left, I think you were kind of carrying your crutches in the side and like
Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah,
I
yeah.
need you were kind of like if I need these, I will use these. And I thought
Right.
that was also that was so self-compassionate too
Mm-hmm.
of you to be like I can walk without these, but I
Mm.
also might have these if I need them.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that was really
Hmm.
lovely, I think, on your last day.
Yeah, yeah, bit by bit.
Yeah. And somebody's asking here too, because that video and watching that
Hmm.
while you're moving, that's one of the common things that we'll use for visualization or mental imagery in practice. And I know as a fellow dancer, this is stuff that we're doing all the time. Like we might be like doing this with our body and we have major choreography going on in our head.
Yeah.
And somebody asked, like, would this visualization technique work with learning to run too? Like, and you could use this for everything. Mental imagery is quite powerful in the
Yeah.
brain. I'm curious how you might be using this now to do more, like to make some of those steps
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, yeah. So I worked with both Mike and Michael kind of on a guided meditation that I recorded for myself, to imagine myself walking and, walking further and further. And so sometimes I'll like put that on, to imagine the movement before I do it, and that's been really useful. So I really love the visualization aspect of everything, and the meditation aspect as well. I think been doing a lot of meditations for anxiety to kind of bring some of that anxiety and fear down, and that's been really good for my nervous system too. So
Yeah.
definitely, we're doing this program helped me develop a lot of habits that now are just making life better. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. And I think what a great lesson. I think sometimes folks might look at like a program as like a beginning and end, and
Hmm.
like I'm just going to be cured and never think about my brain and body again. And that is definitely
Yeah.
not the case. And you are articulating that so nicely, of some of these things that you've just learned for habits that are really helpful for your lifelong like brain and
For
body wellness.
sure.
So you
Yeah.
mentioned meditation, visualization. What are some other things that you learned about your brain and body that you see helping you move forward?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. I think just recognizing, I think from my experience with my ankle and feet, like fear based,
Mm.
CRPS experience, that like some of those like automatic, like quick, like rapid fire, I don't know what you'd call them, just like anxiety
Yeah.
sparks are like so common in my brain. So really trying to think of alternatives to that, whether that's through, breathing, whether that's through like slow manipulation of my joints in a way that kind of brings pleasure in a moment where there might be, more apprehension and fear, whether that's through meditation, and reminding myself to move through that instead of kind of stay static within it.
Mm.
I think has been like helpful for decreasing how long a flare might last, and sometimes like eliminating a flare altogether. So
Yeah.
that's all
That
been great.
that is profound. I'm going to start using anxiety sparks in my terminology. That is such a good
Yeah.
word for that. You see it sparks in your brain, right?
Right.
Like you go and you sense something, and then like it's a circuit in your brain, and like boom, there's like a little spark of
Right.
like, uh-oh.
Right.
And you could, as you say, like moving and be like rigid, or you
Mm.
can move slowly and kind of nurture yourself through that. That it's kind of like a dance. So it's no wonder you have such a great vocabulary for that. Um, and I'm curious. You took some time off then, right, to do this program, and that can be really challenging when you're working and creative. What kind of what might you say to somebody that's on the fence of taking and investing this time for themselves to do something like this?
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to do it, I definitely totally recommend it. I think it was really the right decision for me, and I feel fortunate enough to, be in a workplace that was able to like work with me on that, and I was able to get government benefits during my time off and all of those things as well. So it's yeah, if it's possible for you, I mean, I would say go for it. And I really tried not to like during that time. I feel like I'm always like applying to grants and like applying for different projects and like making plans and doing all these things. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to do any of that while I'm here. Really just focus on myself and get to know myself better. And at first, it kind of like drove me crazy because I was used to just doing a lot. But then once I settled into it, I think it really just helped me get to know myself better. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I feel like I want to say like amen to that for many
yeah,
of us. That is hard to slow down. It's
yes,
really hard to slow down when you're and I want to say too, like since getting to know you, it's been fun to follow you and the creative things that you're doing, the things that you're doing for disabled community. And I think many in our community would like to know what are you doing? Where can they follow you? Because I have learned a lot from you, and I also just think it's really awesome.
Awesome. Thanks for asking. Yeah. So right now I'm working on producing different nightlife events focused on accessibility for the disability community at large. We're called Crip Ecstasy, and you can find the link to that account in my personal Instagram bio. And we are all about just kind of creating experiences where people with various disabilities can come together and dance and enjoy a nightlife experience, feel that release, feel that joy, feeling comfort and safety. So whether that for me is having day beds on the dance floor so that I can like recline and be comfortable, or whether that's having ASL interpretation for drag performances, audio description for blind folks, having a decompression space for anyone who might be overstimulated in a nightlife environment, of course, having wheelchair accessibility and all of that. So yeah, we're working on creating some more events here in the Bay Area and hopefully doing things in LA and beyond. So
I, I'm like
oh,
ready for the LA event.
yeah,
I think that would be incredible. And I think there's just so many people in the world that that would don't do some of the things they love because of accessibility.
mm-hmm.
And so I love that you're taking your passion and your joy and bringing that to other people too.
Yeah.
So thank you, and I'll link to it in our stories too. I'll share your profile for Crip Ecstasy,
Oh, great.
because I think that's cool. Yeah, Lacey was asking what was the accessibility program. So it's called Crip Ecstasy, and I'll link it. I wonder if you can even comment. Oh yeah, there you go. You can comment it in there. You're so good. And you should definitely follow. It is based out of the Bay Area, but hopefully this is a movement that will grow
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
So we can have it in LA and who knows, all over the world. It's a need for sure. I like you had me at David's on the dance floor. I was like, oh my gosh, maybe
Mm-hmm.
there is a life for me on the dance
Oh,
floor
oh,
in my
yeah,
late 40s now. Like I need a day bed.
absolutely.
So yeah, no, that's so awesome. And we share these videos kind of far and wide. We have a lot of other healthcare professionals join in. I want to give a shout out to Maddie, who just joined in herself. And what is a message that you have for clinicians about CRPS and
Mm.
how they might be working with somebody with CRPS?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I felt the best like in an environment, whether that's a doctor's office or a PT office, etc., with someone who doesn't make me feel ashamed for being frightened of doing a movement or like doing something that in my body that I haven't done for a while. And just like, or being like, you know what, I'm not quite ready for this right now, but like, what are some things that we can do to get there? I think sometimes I've experienced, especially from like kind of macho male doctors, being like, just stick your foot up or like, just do this, like, just do that, trust me, and I can't trust someone when they're like, kind of just like yelling at me to do something like that just doesn't feel safe, and the whole thing is about prepping the nervous system to feel safe to do these movements again. So it feels really good when you're taken seriously and like, yes, this is maybe a fear that I'm trying to get over and that I'm trying to work through, but to do that, I'd like to be met with compassion, and hopefully I can meet you with compassion too, and it can be, a positive collaborative relationship.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna have you come speak.
Oh,
Oh, shoot. Let's see. Did I come back here?
you're here for me. Yeah.
Okay. It paused for a second on my screen, but what I was saying is I think we should have you in all the medical schools sharing that compassionate and collaborative
Hmm.
um, environment. Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing actually makes fear worse than just yelling at
Yeah.
it. It is not helpful. So that's fantastic. And so you are life-wise back to work, right? So what are you doing, and what you've already shared actually a lot of your practices that have kind of helped you, but I think a lot of folks are looking to get back to work. And tell me a little bit about what you're doing in your day-to-day, and what are some of those practices, and maybe you've already talked about them, but what are those things that have helped you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, right now I work primarily from home, but also kind of go into the office. Sometimes I do marketing for a dance company that also does work with dancers with and without disabilities, called Access Dance Company. And yeah, they've continued to be supportive. I found work pretty stressful before I came to Reactive, and actually taking some time completely away from work. I've kind of gotten back into the flow, and like actually I think started to like enjoy it a little bit more. Just having that structure and being able to use my brain and feeling kind of like better in that space, and advocating for my needs, and also encouraging myself to maybe do a little bit more. So if I can go out and go to an event, or go to a museum or an outing that gives me pleasure, and feel pretty good in my body after that, and then I can go to my job as well for like a photo shoot, or a meeting, or a video shoot, something like that. So trying to put into perspective these things that previously kind of gave me fear, because in the past they had caused flare-ups, like going to the office and trying to do these things, and putting them into a new perspective through positive embodied associations, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Helpful.
yeah, yeah. Positive embodied associations makes wonderful sense. That is really kind of the name of the game when it comes to getting back to life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love how you've described that. And again, the amount of self-compassion and self-awareness you're bringing to all of those steps, because that's like a lifelong skill for you.
Gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. You also mentioned the dance company, and I feel like we should put the name of that in the
Oh yeah.
comments
The
as well, if you
I
don't mind,
don't.
because
Oh.
we have a lot of folks of many different types. So Access Dance Co. Okay, awesome. A lot of dancers, and I think it's really great to have these spaces that celebrate um, any any type of life, and give accessibility, center accessibility. Um, so you've been a part of really wonderful things, and have taught us a lot,
So
Octavia.
for that.
So I'm so grateful. I really am. And I know I speak for our team. And somebody already said I already followed.
Love it.
So that's so great. Let's get the word out there. And yeah, from our whole team, Octavia, like truly, you're missed that we're not with you in person, but you are celebrated.
Oh,
And we're
thank you.
really thankful, and it's fun to be able to follow along and see where you're going.
Awesome. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much. Y'all have really done so much for me, and I know for other people as well. And I'm really inspired by just the creativity that you all bring to your practice. And I don't know if I'll be a PT, but I'm like, there's something there for me just about the dancing and the neuroplasticity and the creativity that like I would love to spread. So thank you for inspiring me as well.
Yeah, let's keep spreading that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, Octavia, and we will stay in touch.
Okay,
All
sounds great.
right. Thank
All right.
you.
Bye, Julie. Thank
Bye.
you.